Welcome to the Spiritualpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Christian, aka Love Pixel. And in each episode, we sit down with spiritual entrepreneurs sharing their knowledge, wisdom, and tools on their path to authentic success. Let's dive in. What's up, beautiful people? This is Christian from the Successful Spiritualpreneur Podcast. And today I'm very excited to have Wendy Rose Williams on the podcast. And she is a past life energy healer who helps people release chronic pain, anxiety, and stuck energy through past life regression therapy. After two near-death experiences in 1997, it awakened her spiritual gifts, and Wendy healed her own decades-long battle with debilitating chronic pain and dedicated her life to helping others. She trained with Dr. Brian Weiss and other leading experts. She's a hypnotherapist, Reiki master, certified spiritual teacher, author, and channel who guides clients through past life, between lives, and future life healing work. Welcome to the show, Wendy.
Oh, thank you so much, Christian. I'm so glad to be here and have this conversation with you.
Yes. So to start us off, I'd love to talk to you about your near-death experiences. Maybe just lay out briefly how those two near-death experiences happened and how that accelerated your spiritual growth.
Certainly, they really came out of left field, as most near-death experiences do. And it was August of 1997. I was newly pregnant, very excited about that. And what happened, in a nutshell, was my fundus ruptured. I was home alone, and what the fundus is the top of the uterus, and it's an aorta. So I went through a period of very quick blood loss and passed out. I was home alone, and this was before the days when we had a cell phone glued to our hands, so it wasn't so easy to call for help either. But I received this amazing angelic intervention. And what happened was I'm passed out on the bathroom floor, and I hear this insistent male voice saying, "Wendy, Wendy, you've got to wake up now or you're going to go home." And I didn't originally know who that was speaking to me. But when I opened my eyes, I could see 4 or 5 incredibly large white figures, and they were floating, and there was so much love coming from them. And it was just such a shock, because it was just so clear to me. Oh my gosh, my bathroom is filled with angels. I can't believe this. There's angels here to help me. So got the assistance to get to the landline that I needed to get to. And from there, my husband whisked me to the hospital faster than 911 could have gotten me there. And he actually took me to my OB office, and I had just enough time to call them. And they said, come on in right now. Don't park the car when you get here. We're going to be waiting for you with a wheelchair because we don't want you walking. And they whisked me up into their office and did an ultrasound. And from there, they could see what was going on, that there was this massive blood loss. And from the OB office, I was admitted directly into the hospital. So transfusion medicine was what was done at first. And from there, after a couple of days, when I was just losing blood more quickly than they could transfuse me, we did have to do surgery, because no one wants to rush into surgery on a pregnant woman. But there just was so much blood loss that that's what we had to do. So once I've agreed to the surgery, and it was after dinner, I was just relaxing in my hospital room on my own. And I was just trying to visualize the next morning. I was going to be the first surgery of the day. I was just trying to visualize the best possible outcome. And the moment I had that thought, Christian, I popped right out of my body. I left my body. And I remember looking back over my shoulder and looking at myself in the hospital bed and going, wow, look at her. She is whiter than the sheets. And also, I just felt so much better. I felt so much lighter, and I wasn't in pain anymore, because I was in so much pain. I was on morphine. And of course, I'm so worried about about the baby, and just not to be feeling that weight anymore. And my sense of humor started coming back in once I was no longer in my body. And I'm like, oh my gosh, look at her hair. She looks like the wild woman of Borneo. Because, of course, it's been 3 or 4 days in a hospital bed. There's been no mirror. There's been no brush or comb because I couldn't get out of the bed even to go to the bathroom. I just had to lie prone because we're trying to get this bleeding to stop. And then I was like, wait a minute, why am I referring to myself in the third person? And then as I looked at myself in the bed, I'm like, oh, that's Wendy. That's the body I chose this lifetime, but that's certainly not who I am. I mean, I knew I was back in pure soul form. I knew I was my higher self and just felt fantastic. And so I look one more time at my body and I go, she's fine. And that is just that soul perspective, just so blasé, because the soul knows it's always absolutely fine, and it knows everything's happening for a reason, and it knows we're eternal. So just that's the attitude. And what I was much more interested in, versus the body in the bed, was this white light, because I could see the white light at home coming through my hospital, the ceiling. So it's just got this magnetic pull to it. It's like, oh, I am following that. I just have to follow that. So that's exactly what I do. And I'm going higher and higher. I can just see everything receding below me. And I'm going faster and faster and feeling better until all of a sudden I just stutter to a stop. It's that terrible feeling like if you've ever run out of gas and you're like, oh, please, just like, let me make it to the gas station. I need my refueling point. And I remember just crying out for help and saying, oh, please don't make me walk through that long tunnel. And I don't know how I knew that. I was not interested in near-death experiences. Spirituality was not on my radar. But somehow I knew that typically when we went home, going through a tunnel, was one way to go home. And I said, I just won't make it. I don't have enough energy because I've been bleeding out for days. And at the moment I had that thought that I needed help to get home, this gorgeous, pristine escalator drops in. I knew it was just for me. There's no one else on it. There's so much light from it. So I gratefully plopped myself onto the escalator, and I was hanging over the handrail, the right-hand side handrail. So that made me realize what my body in soul form, using the human word body, was like. And I knew I should have been like a bright bouncy orb with just this limitless energy in it, like a little lightning storm. But instead I'm flatter than a pancake. So I just kind of like grip onto the handrail, and the escalator takes me up and up and up. At the top of the escalator, I am met by the most incredible welcoming committee. And the same angels that had been in my bathroom were in the background. And I knew they were angels because they're larger, there's more energy, there's just more love coming from them. But I am so interested in my whole soul family's there. There's 18 or 20 of them as these beautiful orbs, and they just all gather me in this big hug. So I get this group hug, which was just so, in here, it still makes me emotional this many years later. And it was just exactly what I needed. And then Archangel Michael, as everyone's giving me this hug, he starts talking. And the minute I heard him say one word, I was like, oh my gosh, that's who was in my bathroom. That's who was speaking to me and said, you've got to call for help now. It was Michael. And he said, welcome home. We're so glad you're here. You've done nothing wrong. You're welcome to stay. But you're going to need to make your decision quickly. And I kind of flashed back on my body in the bed, and I was like, yeah, obviously. And so he kind of motions everyone to stand back from me so that I can listen to him more clearly. And he said, I can tell you 3 things to help you make your decision. Number 1, if you choose to go back, you will have a successful surgery tomorrow and you will fully regain your health. This is huge. to hear that. And I could feel, more weight just coming off my shoulders, because when he'd first said, "You're welcome to stay," and I'm getting this hug of unconditional love, I'm like, well, of course I'm staying. Why would I go anywhere else? So I know that's why he motioned everyone back, because that was just so influencing me. And number two, if you choose to go back, your baby will be born healthy. This again is tremendous, because I was only 10 weeks pregnant and I worked in healthcare. So I knew more than the average person, because I've had morphine, I've had transfusions. This is all in the first trimester. And we don't know what we're operating on. We didn't yet know at the time that it was the fundus had ruptured. And so, but to hear that my baby was going to be born healthy, and I'd had years of infertility, and we had a toddler, and I really felt like this baby, this child, was going to be so special, and I also felt like it was my last opportunity to have a child in this lifetime. So it was just a really big deal to hear that. So now I'm starting to lean toward, oh gosh, should I go back? It feels like I need to go back. And then I get jerked the other direction again one more time, because what Michael said as number three was the kicker. And he said, if you choose to go back, your life will be very difficult for many years, likely, because you're not on your life path. You're not living your purpose. I felt terrible when he said that. It's like my energy just plummeted again. I felt so embarrassed. I felt just, no one wants to hear they're not living their purpose. So of course I ask them the logical next question. I was like, well, tell me more. What is my purpose? I want to do the right thing. I'll change. What should I be doing? What should I not be doing? And he just gently shakes his head. So I realize I'm not going to get any more information there. But I'm like, wait a minute. I'm with my soul family. I'm with the souls I've incarnated with the most times. I just have to go around the group, and there's got to be a chatty Cathy somewhere here in the group that's going to give me some information. So I start going from person to person to person, but no one will tell me anything. So again, my energy is just plummeting, and my cat wants to play with the blind cord right now. Let me move this away from her. And so since no one will tell me anything, they start using sense of humor, because I'm getting really upset. So they put duct tape over their mouth when I go to ask them, or they like lock their mouth with a key and like throw away the key, but in a really humorous way. So I start feeling better and realize I just need to lighten up, and I'm going to figure this out, and I'm going to get it right. And for me to start to feel that confidence, that was exactly what needed to happen. So when Michael asked me, "What do you want to do?" At the moment he asked me that, all I could see was our toddler's adorable face and her little brown curly hair. But it wasn't like Tara's face was normal sized. It just filled my whole world view. It was all I could see. All around me was just her smiling at me. So it was an easy decision. And I said, Michael, put me back in. I'm ready to play. I want to go back for my children.
Wow.
And it just was so simple at that point. And it's like, I'll just figure out the rest of whatever's going to be difficult. So everyone gives me, so he's just, beaming, and everyone is just beaming at me. And they're like, oh, that's so brave. That's a great choice. That's the right thing for you to do. And everyone gives me one more group hug to wish me well. And that time, Christian, the first time I felt unconditional love and acceptance, which made me realize it had felt somewhat missing in my life. And I realized you've got to give it to yourself. That was the missing piece, was just that solar plexus just wasn't strong enough of that, that self-love, that self-compassion, etc. And you can't feel it from other people if you can't give it to yourself. So everyone with that second hug, I could feel them sharing energy with me and me getting energy that I needed. Because of course I've just been teetering on the point of death for several days. I could feel myself walking between worlds and making the decision to stay or go. So that second near death experience gave me exactly what I needed. So everyone finishes up the group hug because again, Michael, motions them away. We're done, and puts me back on the down escalator. And I'm just looking over my shoulder, and everyone's in cheerleader mode, like, "You can do it! Get back in there! We'll be with you." And I just felt so much more connected and so much more loved and supported. So it's very easy. I just go back into the hospital room. I go back into my body gently. And then it was like, ugh, immediately feel two things. First of all, just the weight, the pain, the discomfort. It's like, it's okay. I just have to make it through to the surgery tomorrow morning and everything's going to be okay. And the other thought I had was, ugh, why is she so little? I was annoyed. I was annoyed that I'm 5'2", and I'm like, why do I have to scrunch into this little body? Because of course our souls are so limitless and just so large, and we bring only a portion of our energy with us because that's all that's gonna fit, and that's all that we need. So again, I was like, it's okay. I chose this body. I chose it for good reasons, and that's just the way it is. So clearly, I did have a successful surgery the next day, and my physician later estimated I had lost 3/4 of my blood supply during that 3 or 4 days, based on the amount of transfusing that they had to do. And they discovered what the exact issue was and stitched up. That fund is stitched up that uterus. But again, I'm only 10 weeks pregnant, and now I've got to go through 30 more weeks with all that growth. And the concern was that the uterus could rupture again. And I had asked the physician, what would that mean? And he said, that's exactly the right question, because we need to decide what to do here. And he said it could rupture and the baby would go up into your heart and lungs. And I said, and that's probably death. And he said that's exactly what that is. But through having had the near death experience, I knew it was going to be okay. And I said, we're not terminating the pregnancy. I'm keeping the pregnancy.
Hmm.
So we're gonna ride the wave. So that's what I did. So I went home to 6 weeks of strict bed rest. Couldn't have done another thing if I wanted to. I was just weaker than a kitten from having, lost all that blood and having gone through this experience. So we were very fortunate. We had a live-in nanny who cared for our daughter because my husband had to be at work, and we didn't have any other family in the area. So she was taking care of me as well as our daughter. And then I went back to work. It's a job I love. I had been there for several years, and everything went well for about 6 weeks. And then in November of 1997, it's a Friday afternoon, get called into my boss's office, and I don't think a thing about it, Christian. We had a great relationship. I thought, oh, he wants to tell me something he needs done next week, or he wants to chat about weekend plans. But the minute I walked in his office, I could just see the weight of the world on him. And I see our human resources rep sitting there with a file. I didn't even have to step over the threshold. I knew what it was. It's like, oh no, here it comes. It's the dreaded Friday afternoon layoff. And I'm pregnant. I've just gone through this, massive health issue, and I'm still recovering. And I also carried the health insurance for the family. So now we have no health insurance for me to deliver. So, certainly they did it as humanely as they could. And, every support they could put in place for me, they did. But it was a really, really tough layoff and situation. So I go home, I update my family. It's like, okay, I'll, file for unemployment on Monday and we will figure this out. 1 week later to the day, again, it's November of 1997. And, we don't know. The economy is about to take a really, really hard dip. It was actually a worldwide recession at that time. My husband worked in tech. I worked in healthcare. We'd purposefully worked in different industries, to try and bulletproof our family the best we could. He comes home a week later to the day. He's hours late coming home from work. I'm really concerned because I haven't been able to reach him on his cell phone. And I'm thinking, has he had a car collision? What's happening? It's about 8 o'clock at night. And he comes in the door, and I'm like right there by the door, sitting on the living room couch waiting for him. And again, he didn't have to say a word. I can just see the weight of the world on him as he comes in the door. And I was like, "Are you okay? What's going on?" And he said, "Sit down. I have to tell you something really difficult." And what he shared with me, he was one of 5 or 6 owners in a successful software company in Seattle area. And they had just gone belly up and had to lay off everyone in the company. And he also shared with me that he was going to be working incredibly long hours trying to get everything settled and trying to figure out what to do with the lease and the furnishings and how to sell the company, etc. So I'm just looking at him because once he'd said to me, one of the first things he said was, "I just went to payless paydays." And my brain couldn't compute. I couldn't put the two words together. And I said, "Wait, you need to go back to the payless payday thing. What does that mean?" And so he, explained some of it to me again. And I was like, "Well, that's okay. I'm so sorry this is happening to you, because it's one thing to be laid off. It's another to lose your company. That's a different level of emotion to it all." I said, "That's okay. Take the weekend. We'll figure this out. On Monday, you can file for unemployment." And that was the next very unpleasant shock to me, because I'd never been self-employed at that time. And he says, "No, Wendy, I don't qualify for unemployment insurance. I'm self-employed. I own the company." It's like, oh boy. So we were at the situation, we had just not long ago moved into a larger home, prepping for the next child. Everything had been going well for years. It made sense at the time. We had just purchased a minivan because, again, getting ready for the new baby. And I'm like, oh boy, this is all based on 2 full-time incomes. So, and I kept thinking back to what Michael had said. Things were going to get very, very difficult.
Hmm.
So they certainly did. Long story short, we were fortunate. We were saved by Bank of Mom, and my mother kindly, with some real effort and sacrifice on her part, she made up the shortfall for us every month, so that we didn't lose our home and didn't have our car repossessed, because that was literally what was going to happen as I was negotiating with the different lenders, etc. So we were very fortunate. And the next thing that happened that was so different, Christian, because I could now hear the divine, and I had not had that experience before. So I was sitting at the pediatrician's office with our older daughter. I was, still quite pregnant, further along in the pregnancy, but no health insurance, because I hadn't been able to find any. I hadn't been able to find any help, because we were wealthy, because we owned a home and owned 2 vehicles, all heavily mortgaged and all about to go away. But, by any standards, we were wealthy. So I'm sitting in the pediatrician's office, and all of a sudden I hear Michael say, "Look, look." And he turned this lamp on that was on a little side table next to the door, and he just made it brighter and brighter. And I'm like, what? And I'm looking at this lamp, and I can see this little brochure in front of it in a little stand that I hadn't noticed. So it's like, oh, clearly you're trying to show me that. So I tucked my daughter under my arm, run over and grab it, and shove it in the diaper bag to read later. What it was the application for WIC. I didn't know what WIC was. It's women, infant, and children. It's a specific subset of Medicaid. At that time, again, this was 1997, early 1998, and it included health insurance. It included coverage for my delivery in a hospital. I had no other choice, with the high risk situation that I was in. It's like I was not a candidate for a birth center, for a home birth, etc. I needed full on expensive hospital care for the delivery, and it also provided for some food, which honestly, healthy food for myself and for my 18-month-old, which honestly we really needed help with. So I was so grateful that we were able to get that assistance when we needed it. And I delivered on Friday, March 13th, 1998, and everything changed again with that delivery. I think there was a lot of worldwide astrology or personal astrology for both my husband and I that was going on, because I deliver on the Friday. I had been approved for a very short stay, just for a 24-hour stay. So I'm literally wheeled out and put back in the car the next day, with that newborn, and I'm trying to catch up to everything because we're so grateful that she's there and we've got the healthy baby. And I'm at home the next morning, nursing the baby. I'm by myself in our bedroom, and Archangel Michael comes in again, and I'm like, oh wow! And I just started to say thank you to him for all the assistance, etc. And I was so grateful, and I'm just holding the baby, and he just says very conversationally, your contract with your husband is complete. And I look at him, I am not a happy camper. And I'm like, what the expletive deleted? And I'm like, no, wait, Wendy, don't jump to conclusions. Clarify with them. I said, are you saying my marriage is over? And he said, yes, your soul contract with your husband is complete. And just leaves. So it took me years to settle back into that moment and to understand and to let go of the anger about that, because it's just that's not what you want to hear at the moment when you're there with your newborn. But
But you spoke with him about that, or you just kept that for yourself and you observed his behavior, or
did I speak with my husband about it, you mean, or
yeah.
again with
Mhm.
Michael? I did not know how to share any of this with my husband. I had tried to share the experiences right back from the beginning, from when I got out of the hospital, and what I realized, Christian, he was more traumatized by it all than I was,
Mhm.
because put yourself in his shoes. He almost lost his wife and his baby. He didn't know what to do about it. And he hadn't had the positive aspects of the near death experiences that I had had.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So it just wasn't resonating for him. So I wasn't going to. So I held it to myself, and it's like, I need to figure out my way through this for the entire family, for the good of the family. So
And
we
then when your newborn was born and you got that message from Michael, was he like your husband? Like he didn't know, right? Like he just you assumed he was gonna leave at some point, or what does it mean? They're so
I
confident,
didn't
and
I
because it
didn't
being,
I didn't assume that it was going to be him leaving. I what I felt it was going to be was we were going to agree to an amicable divorce, that we were
Mhm.
going to need to find our way,
At
because we had
some
two
point
children.
in the future.
Exactly, at the right time. So we did our very best, as those overwhelmed, new parents with two little girls 2 years apart. And what had happened too that was really surprising. So I deliver on a Friday, and he goes back to work in new employment. They'd finally been able to get the company sold. It took from November to March, so 5 months. And he goes back to work on Monday. So everything shifts in our lives in that one weekend. And what I did was I took a 3 month unpaid maternity leave, and then I was able to go back to work in June.
Hmm.
So, and then just everything started to get back to the new normal from that.
Yeah.
We did divorce when the children were both in school full time. I chose when they were 6 and 8 that was going to be the best time to do it. And we went to this very amicable 50-50 residential schedule where the girls were back and forth. And the big win that came out of that was my mother was retired. She was living all the way in Boston. We were in Seattle, so across the country. And more people had been saying to her, you know, Wendy and John aren't going to come back to Boston. Why don't you consider moving out to Seattle? So that's exactly what happened. And she came out and announced, hey, I'm team grandmom. I don't play favorites. Wendy, if you need help, John, if you need help, if the kids need help, I'm here for the kids. I'm here for the family. And that was a really big deal for all of us. So she helped, raise the kids, because it's very hard to do with a 50-50 schedule in Seattle traffic, where you're just stuck in
Yeah.
traffic for hours a day and trying to work these full-time jobs. And school hours don't begin to cover it. So we were very fortunate that that's how that played out.
Wow.
But other questions?
What a life story. I just want to pause here for a moment, you know. It's incredible, you know, what you went through, you know, not only yourself but with everyone, the whole family, you know.
Yes, yes. Yes,
That's
it really was
that's
life changing
incredible.
for us. Multiple times and multiple ways. And my that youngest daughter that went through the NDE with me, she's now 27 years old. So it's like everything. Works out beautifully, but boy, it can sure take some time and some
Yeah.
effort and some challenges along the way.
Yeah. Well, you know, you chose to come back and do the lesson now rather than check out of here and come back and do a lesson a different way, you know? So,
Yes, I really feel if I had chosen to, because I believe we all have exit points that we pre-plan and can choose to take. I think our soul does a lot of brilliant planning for what we want to work on, and some
mm,
of what the possibilities might be, and the exit points of when we're going to go back home. That clearly was an exit point for me, that I chose not to take. And I'm so glad I didn't take it, because I would have missed all the wonderful things that have happened in my life, and raising my daughters. And I would have missed, the family has come back together very recently, in very, very beautiful ways, and is closer than ever, because I have my first granddaughter. So my
mm,
eldest daughter now has a little 17-month-old, and that baby has just brought the family together in incredible, incredible ways. And we literally all moved as a family from Seattle to Spokane, so across Washington State, and we have 12 of us here now. So to be
wow.
able to do an extended family move like that, it's a big deal.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. And what about that purpose that you said you were gonna find?
Yes, the
How how
purpose.
how and when did that come about?
Sure. So where my career started, and I was really focused on my career. So I had an MBA degree, a master's in business, by the time I was 22 years old. I had been really focused on that, and that was a big deal to get that done and get that accomplished so early in life. So I was working in business, as was my former husband. So that really was the big focus. And spirituality, it just really wasn't on my radar. And what has come up as my purpose, again and again, is to be able to help others with their spiritual awakening and to help others release pain, release anxiety, release depression, and just to be able to feel happier and healthier, and that their life does have a beautiful purpose. Even though that purpose may feel unclear or cloaked from us as
Mm,
humans, we just have to have some sense of humor about it and know that we can't get it wrong. And if
yeah.
we're really off track, there's just some guardrails around it. So we're going to get shaken. We're going to get the shake you to wake you, like I did multiple
Yeah.
times to help get on track.
I feel right now like, 2025 to 2030, like it feels like we're getting into this crunch time, like collectively as humanity in a way.
Yes.
Um,
Well,
but I'm
Earth
not
is
sure.
just
Maybe you can, speak to that. We have
yes.
insights from different modalities.
Absolutely, because Earth is just raising her vibration and frequency so much. I mean, that's why we're seeing um, just these crazy weather patterns, because she's got to cool herself off and just have those changes for the planet to remain habitable. And we've just got to find that place of that inner peace, because if we can't balance up our own energy and peace, how is there ever going to be peace on the planet? Because the planet's a reflection of us, and we're a reflection of her. I mean, she's our mother, she's our host. We're here. We chose to be here. So I think being willing to take responsibility for what just feels so challenging and so wrong, and just knowing that all these things that are coming to light that have people very upset. I mean, we're seeing free for all with our governments, with our healthcare system, with our education system. But what if we choose to look at it as things have to fall apart to come back together in a better, more sustainable way? And I think that's why there's so much ugliness just being exposed. Because if you've got a wound and it's infected underneath, but it's got it's healed on top, it's not a healthy heal. But sometimes it's got to be cauterized, sometimes it's got to be. And I think that's a lot of what we're going through. So I think if we can just make that decision when things are really challenging in life, and just feel, okay, I've got this one. The universe always has my back. Versus being in that victim place, Christian, of, ugh, everyone's always out to get me. It never works out for me. It's just the worst. You know, yes, we want to throw that pity party for ourselves at times. And you've got to feel your real emotions. You've got to own them. You can't stuff them down, or they're just going to pop out and explode in a bigger way at the worst possible times. We've got to feel them, but we have to have healthy ways to feel it and then release it. And it just gets easier and easier to go, oh, wow, I just need to be realistic right now. I'm feeling really angry. I'm feeling jealous. I'm feeling like I can't get this accomplished. I just need to take some time for myself. And, maybe I need to have a pity party for 24 hours to let it go.
Yeah.
Uh, and just find a way. Because I believe our emotions are just one of our greatest teachers, and that's what we're here to experience. Because we don't experience emotions like that on the other side, because we have everything we need, and we don't need food and shelter, and we're there with unconditional love. But we're also not learning and progressing like we do when we get down here and incarnate and get into the challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what it's all about, when you are a spirit in a body, you're
Mhm.
just this unlimited being in this limited body, and you
Right.
could do so much more, but there's certain things that you chose to, experience while you're here because you couldn't experience them elsewhere, you know?
Right. Right. Exactly. So when things get very challenging, I think it's so important to know how to recenter yourself, to have a daily spiritual practice where you know how to ground and clear your energy, and that just helps you raise your vibration. I'll give you a quick example. I was laid off in June of 2017 from a different job that I really loved. I'd been there about 10 years, and I was planning on staying there through retirement. So I get laid off from that, and because I had more skills at that point, I was able to meditate, talk with my guides, and say, "What's the opportunity? Why is this happening for me? What's the silver lining?" Because it can take us, years to get to that point and
Mm.
see what the blessing was in the health crisis, or the relationship, or the financial, or whatever. And often they'll all come together. If you really need to be shaken, you'll have them come together, and it can really feel like that perfect storm. So what they said was, well, back in 2017 was, well, it's time for you to hang your shingle. And I said, what do you mean? Do you mean me starting to, because I had been really had another major awakening in 2010 when I met the soulmate that had the contract to wake me up spiritually. And I had been divorced at that time for about 6 or 7 years. So that's the surprise match I get literally on match.com. Was I meet the soulmate who wakes me up spiritually, which might be pretty unusual, but the guides are just going to, meet us wherever we're at.
Mm.
So in 2017, when I get that layoff, I can't find a job. And Christian, I knew it didn't make sense logically because the economy was strong. I had great experience, great background, incredible network, and the job just wasn't coming. So I had to really dig deep, because to start my own uh, spiritual services practice at that time as a past life regressionist, as an energy healer, with the big mortgage and with two daughters in college, it's like I had never had, more financial crunch in my life. But I was able to, just communicate with the guides and say, why is this happening for me? And they're like, well, because you were going to stay in the safe lane. You were just going to stay working for the hospital, and you weren't fulfilling your purpose and your mission. And I tried bargaining. I'm like, well, can't I do that on the side like I've been doing? Can't I do the past life regression on the weekend? They're like, no, because if you do that, you're not releasing your fear about money. And I'm like, do we have to do it while the kids are in college? They're like, yes, because otherwise you won't go down deep enough into the
Mm.
financial fear of, how do I make this work? So I had to really, really dig deep. And then, so I did. So I kept looking for the job, and I hung my shingle too, because by that time I had retrained, thinking it was all for personal interest and just, a lot of excitement and joy around it, and thinking it was for that, because I didn't want to take it on full time. It's like, oh, I can do that later, when the girls are out of college. But that wasn't my timeline. My soul wanted it wanted a bigger adventure, because their souls are very adventurous. So then what happens in 2018 is I'm still very, very fragile financially. And I'm, very happy with my car that I have, that's, been paid off for years and is running great. And I'm so happy with it. And I woke up one morning in April of 2018, and I could just feel, I was like, oh, today feels very challenging. What's going on? And because you do have to ask the intelligent question, should I just stay home today? But they're like, nope, you got to go out and do your thing. And I was going to a dog rescue event. And so I drove very carefully, because again, I was just feeling vigilant. And I saw there was like one parking spot left in the lot. And I asked the angels, I said, should I go in the lot? Is that my spot? They're like, yes, go get your spot. Look at that. Great. One spot left. So I'm there for a couple of hours, thoroughly enjoy this event. And when I go to pull out afterwards and to make the right turn, my view is unfortunately blocked because the cars that were parked immediately to my left were just gigantic and I can't see through them. So I'm like inching out very carefully. And I said to the angels, is it safe? Do I pull out now? Can I pull out now? And they're like, yes, pull out now. Christian, the minute I do, boom, I am hit so hard. I was spun around almost 360 degrees back into the parking lot. And I'm just praying. I'm trying to get my foot on the gas. And three, um, um, what's the word that they explode to? Airbags.
Mm.
Airbags. I can't see a thing because they're across the whole front of my windshield and they're on my, I'm blind. And I'm just praying, please don't let me hit a person or a dog, because there'd been so many people, in that area moving and walking around, and there was seating outside. And I'm just praying because I feel like I've been, pushed back in where I was. And that's exactly what had happened. So finally, my car comes to rest and I manage to get my foot on the brake, and people come running over to help and, tell me, turn the key off, turn the car off. And we're calling the ambulance now because the woman that hit me so hard, she'd then careened off a parked car, so she definitely needed medical attention. And people, I mean, there were so many angels. People knew on the other side that this was coming,
Mm.
so people were already out and blocking the road, directing traffic, so there wouldn't be any more. And I actually called 911. I called the police. And I looked up the address of where I was because, Christian, I didn't want to say the name, and you'll get the humor in it in a minute. I didn't want to say the name of where I was. So I give them the address and I'm like, hey, we've got a 3-car collision here. We need an ambulance. We need help to sort this out. Please come to this address now. And she's like, fine, absolutely. Help is on its way. And she said, where are you? Are you at a house? Are you at a store? Where are you? And I gave her the address again. And she said, I've got the address, but where are you? I said, I'm right across the street from Fred Meyer. She said, no, where are you? And I finally said, Hell Bent Brewery. And you could hear the pause on the other end. And she's like, I'll let them know that. And I thought, oh boy, this is going to be interesting. I have never had any issue with alcohol, but I had a fear around this. I thought, oh boy, what is this going to be like? Because I know I'm the one at fault because I'm the one pulling out as carefully as I can into the traffic. And the police officer was so kind and said, he says, I do need to go through the events of the day. Did you drink any alcohol? What is this event? What's going on? Because I'm wearing this sweatshirt with the name of the dog rescue on it. And all my friends are coming. There's like 20 people there. And he's like, what is going on here? What is with all these dogs? And why are you all wearing the same shirts? He's like, what is this? And I told him, I said, it's a dog rescue event. And I answered his questions. And he said, okay, there's no issue with alcohol. You had 1 beer 4 hours ago and you've eaten food. And he's like, you're clear-eyed other than you've just been in an accident. He was so kind and everyone else was so helpful. But I did say to my angels, we need to talk. Because why was I put in that parking spot and why did they tell me to pull out? What the
Mm.
reason was, it was to heal and release my issues. I had a very strong fear and anger toward authority. So now I have to deal with calling the police and
Mm.
tow truck driver, work this through with the insurance company, work this through with court. You can see just again and again and again. And it was such a benefit for me, and it all went beautifully. But just, what a dramatic way
Mm.
to do that. So just remember in those, really hard moments, just say, okay, why is this happening for me? What
Mm.
can I best do here? And you just find your way through.
Yeah. Yeah, it really comes down to being able to change their perspective at any given time,
Yes.
you know?
Because I absolutely could have gone to victim and anger place over the
Yeah.
whole, over the whole
That skill is
experience.
just so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. I love your stories. That's amazing. You know, it's so entertaining to just like listen to the stories with those details, you know, like it really um helps the listeners and myself
Right.
understand like, wow,
Right.
you know? Yeah. That's beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
we have about 7 to 10 minutes left on this episode, and yeah, is there anything you'd like to share? Because you know you have so much experience now with
Yes. I
energy
would
healing,
just,
past life regression. Like I
I
don't
would
know,
just,
you just have so much. I feel knowledge and experience in that
oh,
field.
thank you. I would just love to share with people, just be willing to uh, try some new things for healing. Find your own daily spiritual practice, and it can be quick, it can be simple, it can be easy. I resisted learning to meditate like you wouldn't believe. And again, I got such help and intervention. Finally, a friend signed me up for a course to go learn how to meditate, and the two of us were supposed to go together, and she ended up not being able to go, having business travel. So I just went on my own. And it really was life changing to just learn how to settle down that busy, busy left brain that a lot of us can have, and just too much chatter, too much busyness.
Hmm.
So just finding, what that spiritual practice is, and it's not meant to be a task. It's meant to be just relaxing for you and
Yeah.
uplifting, be something you look forward to each day. And,
No.
don't be afraid to change it up either. And also forgive yourself when occasionally we've got, just that crazy 16-hour day and it doesn't happen. That's okay.
Yeah.
Um, but just be willing to try some new things for healing. Certainly, work with your own guides, do anything and everything for yourself. It's very empowering, and just believe in yourself, and know what your own truth is as you're doing that. But then also to work with others. So, what I love about past life regression healing is we're all carrying the past, Christian, and parts of it are wonderful and beneficial. It can be where we get our strength, our resiliency, our backbone from, our courage from, is from having achieved things previously. And past life can be, don't take it too literally. It can also be this lifetime, because you're certainly not the person now that you were when you were a 3-year old, in utero. It's like the healing can come in at all different places. So working with a past life regressionist, it can change everything. My very first session that I went to with the past life regressionist, me as the client, I was a very overscheduled, very busy, very type A, very stressed, single working mother, and I tried to control everything. Control's an illusion, but if we have anxiety, in particular, we can be trying to control things because it makes us feel better, but it's not effective. We haven't learned how to spiritually surrender and go with the flow.
Hmm.
So I go to the very first session. It was November of 2011. So 1111, light workers awake, just this perfect numerology. And the gal was amazing. We'd had a phone interview. I'd, gone through her website and done research, and I'd actually been referred to her by my boyfriend that had woken me up in 2010. And he says, "Oh, I'd love to go to this gal in downtown Seattle. She trained with Michael Newton. She sounds amazing. but I'm not willing to wait 6 months. She's got a 6-month waiting list. And I looked at her website and I said, oh, I am waiting for her. She looks fantastic, and it's going to take me that time to save the money because I just have this super, super tight budget. But I was like, oh, she just feels perfect for me. And she was from Paris. So I just knew that French accent. I grew up in Quebec. And I just knew it was just going to be a great match for me. And as I spoke with her on the phone, I'm like, yeah, she's it. So we agreed, and she was wonderfully supportive, but also wonderfully blunt, and said, Wendy, you've never done anything like this. You don't have any spiritual practice. You don't know how to meditate. We just need to treat it as an interesting experiment. Are you willing to do that? And we just don't know what's going to happen, especially because it's your first session. So I scheduled the 2-hour session with her. And Christian, I was so, again, controlling about it because she'd offered to tape it. And I was like, no, I'll tape it myself, because I'd read just ridiculous things that people can like mess with the tapes. And that's just ridiculous. Your therapist is not going to do that, nor do they have time to do that. But I had my new to me, fancy dancy iPhone that I barely knew how to use, but I'd managed to find the record button on it. So I recorded the entire session. I just felt some calm and peace around that, knowing that I could go back to it and like listen to it again. And that session was incredible. To my surprise and hers, I turned out to have the blessing of being a fantastic therapeutic trance subject. I went really deep, really fast, stayed there, and I visioned not only multiple things in this lifetime that she took me through to clean up and understand better and release the angst around it, but we visited 2 past lives. And so then when she's gently bringing me out about 15 minutes before our time is up, one of her first questions, to me was, along with how do you feel? And I said, oh my gosh, I feel so much lighter. I feel like I've let go of the perfectionism and the stress. And I feel like, we've just got an eternity to figure it out. And we're just going to get it right, and it's all going to work out great. I feel so much lighter. I feel like the weight of the world. I said my neck and shoulders and back just feel so much better having gone through this experience. And she said, what's your relationship like with authority? Because again, this was 2011. I haven't yet had the car collision in 2018 that's going to really free me up. And I just immediately said, oh, I have no issues with authority. I'm fine with authority. And in my mind, it was like, well, I've never been to jail, therefore I don't have an issue with authority. But I didn't say to her how I would just tense up. It could be as simple, Christian, as I would get a piece of mail I didn't anticipate, and it's from the bank. It's from like a court, like a jury. It could be anything. I mean, it was so broad. And she said, well, Wendy, the reason I'm asking that question, it's an obvious thread between those 2 very different past lives that you just released. They were both issues with authority. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. So we talked it through a little bit. But the biggest thing that came up, she said, what's the biggest change for you now that we've just done this, marvelous 2-hour healing and past life regression before? I said, oh my gosh, I'm 49, 50 years old. I no longer feel anxious. I don't feel anxiety. It was life-changing for me because I had had anxiety my whole life to that point. Not to the point where it needed medication, but it was a buzzkill. It made me live life small, just too much in the quote safe lane, the conservative lane, and the rails just needed to come off all that. So that's what the different spiritual awakenings were doing. So it was just really, really powerful. So I looked at her and said, please get out your your calendar. I want to book a Life Between Lives session, which is a 4-hour deep spiritual regression that Dr. Michael Newton created. And she's like, oh, people don't usually jump right into that. And I said, I want to book it a year from now. And just like the words were just coming out of my mouth. It's like I just knew, it's like my intuition was so much sharper and honed, and I just trusted it more, and I just knew what was right for me in a way I hadn't known before. So she got out her book. She's like, I don't know if it even goes that far. I was like, well, let's figure it out. So we planned the date, and I did go back a year later and have the Life Between Lives. It was an amazing success when I transcribed that recording, Christian. 65 pages of information about my life I had never known. And it just cleaned up and made things so much clearer. And it also got me on my writing path because I just started transcribing these amazing sessions that I was having with healers. And that's what started to lead to me being an author, because that was definitely part of my life path too, was to share the experiences publicly through books. And I couldn't figure out how to get it done. I was like writing fiction and nonfiction, and I was all over the place, and I just couldn't figure out one book. So the breakthrough came for that with the boyfriend who woke me up in 2010 and who'd gotten me to that therapist. He literally drove me to the session, because back then, you couldn't do them via Zoom. There was no Zoom. You had to go in person to someone's office. And his session, I offered him a session, because what happened very quickly as I had my sessions and continued having them, so I had the 2 with the Newton therapist, and then I had 3 with a Dolores Cannon therapist the next 2 summers. So it'd been about 3 years. And at the end of that 3rd session with the Dolores Cannon therapist, she said to me, Wendy, you really need to listen to your tape, because it's fascinating. I've not seen this before. She said, you're not only completely facile speaking as your higher self, because that's what happens during trance. We can start to speak as our higher self. We can speak as our guide. So it's the client, bringing up all these realizations, and the therapist then just gently guides them and clarifies. It's not like your therapist is doing a psychic reading for you. That's not what's going on. It's the opposite. It's your truth coming through. But what the therapist said was, she said, you're not only completely facile as them. She said, you're actually either your higher self or your guides is giving me directions and telling me what to do and saying, ask her this or take her back to this more. And she said, it's fascinating. She said, you've clearly been this type of a therapist before, because I don't normally see this. And when I, listened to it and transcribed it, it's like, oh my gosh, she's absolutely right. So then at that point, it was like, oh, I just want to open myself to, how can I train for this? How can I help others the way these sessions have changed my life? Because I had 2 with the Newton, and then 3, so five sessions over 4 years had changed everything in such a positive way. It's like, oh my gosh, I want to share this with others. It's a really, really big deal to release that anxiety, that depression, that pain, and be able to let that go and to more embrace our path and feel more confident and more excited about it and know that it's all going to be okay. So I did then train. And then the way the first book came out was they were stuck in me like a bathtub plug that just couldn't be pulled out. So my boyfriend had been a professional athlete. He'd broken his neck. He had so he'd had a successful surgery, but a lot of residual pain, and very difficult to turn his neck, and just very tight shoulders and neck. So causing a lot of problems for him. So I, at that point, was trained, and I said to him one day, would you like to do a session with me? Because we were no longer dating, but we had worked our way back to being spiritual seekers together. We had a very specific lane that we were in, And he said, oh my gosh, that would be amazing, because, those sessions take me some time to save for. And yes, I'd be thrilled if you would do a session for me. I said, great. So we did that. And as I was getting ready and prepping, praying and meditating as I do before each client's session, it's about 3 or 4 days before his session. And my guide said clearly, this is going to be the most difficult session you're ever going to facilitate. So I did have to ask the logical question, hey, am I meant to do it? And I did share that with him. And he said, well, it's okay. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And the guide specifically said there's still so much energy between the two of you. There might be some blocking energy to try and record it. He has to get his recording. So just record it with 2 devices. So I was like, okay, fine. So I recorded it back then I was using an MP3 recorder, and I recorded it. I had a brand new iPhone. So I recorded it with the 2. The MP3 fails. No reason for it to fail. New batteries. We tested it. There's nothing on it. So I'm praying that day, because he'd had a 4.5-hour session, and it had been amazing. And I knew he needed to listen to it himself, to hear his own wisdom coming through. He hadn't been able to connect with his guides, and that connection got made during the session, as well as major healing for these physical issues. And I'm just praying when I hit the play on the phone, and I'm like, oh, it's all there. It's clear as day. I can't get it I can't transfer it onto his computer, because I was in person with him. I can't transfer it onto his computer because his file is huge. It's like, no problem. I'll go to the phone store tomorrow. And I went in there and I said to them, I need a manager, please. I said, I've got a really confidential file. We can't play this out loud in the store. I'm a therapist, but we just need to get this off my phone and tell me how to transfer it. And they're working with it. They're like, what the heck is this? They said the iPhone's not capable of recording for 4.5 hours. That's not possible. I was like, well, I've got it. It's here. Don't mess it up. So they can't get it off either. They said, we don't know what to tell you. It's not possible. We can't transfer it either. So I go home. I'm like, what do I do? I can't give him my phone, to listen to it. And we didn't want to listen to it together. It had been enough to go through it, in person together. So I'm praying and meditating. What do I do? I was like, oh my gosh. My guides are like, you need to type it up for him. Just quick and dirty. Just don't worry about the typos. And I said to him, okay, what if I type it for you as a transcript and just do it that way? He's like, oh my gosh, that would be huge. Please do that. I would really appreciate it. It's like, okay. Because when I'd asked him, Christian, at the end of the session, how long do you think your session was? He says, oh, we went surprisingly long. It was like 1.5 hours, 2 hours. I'm like, no, look at the clock. It was 4.5 hours. And that missing time, that's him speaking as his higher self and as his guides. But I don't know what he knows and doesn't know exactly. He needed the transcript. So I'm at home on a Saturday typing it and, listening to it. And it's tedious. It's a hard task to do. We didn't have, AI and tools to do transcription like that for us then. And so I take my first break and, stretch, get some water, come back. And I look at what I've typed. I was so surprised, Christian, because clearly I was channeling part of it. And I didn't know how my guides had come in so much. There's the name of the book is there. It says Regression Healing 1. And it's got the title, it's by Wendy Rose Williams. And I've put in a note to include a healing resource guide at the end of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a book. So I finished typing the whole thing for him, and I said, how do you feel about me sharing this? We'll blind your identity and we'll take out anything you're not comfortable with. Would you be comfortable with me sharing this publicly, with you being the one that goes through it first? And he said, absolutely, I would be thrilled with that, because what I'm hearing is it's going to help other people so much. And it's also going to fulfill that contract we have together that we haven't been able to figure out of we're meant to help each other write books about
Mm.
spirituality, and we're meant to speak publicly together to help others. And that was part of why I'd been so heartbroken when he and I broke up after a year plus, because I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to do all those things?
Mm.
Because I didn't know how to accomplish them without him, because he was the published writer and he was actually on television at that point. He had the public speaking connections, and I just didn't know how to do it alone because I didn't have any of those connections or background. So our guides just find different ways, different ways. So I helped him get his first book published separately. So he did that. And then that session with him became my first book. And that just, broke open the dam for me. And he got me my first public speaking engagement. And it all came together beautifully another way. We just have to let go of the how and just say, I'm open to it. Show me the way. Help me. Same thing with getting my first book published. I had no background to do so, and I self-published it. And you've got to have some skills, because how do you do the cover? How do you do the formatting? Where do you get the test readers? Where do you get the editor? Oh, those all came to me so quickly, so easily. It was amazing because it was meant to happen. And I just kept asking my guides and higher self for help and to make it happen.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love that. Yeah, it really sounds like, your life was just always very, very guided, right? You had a lot of hard lessons, but you never lost the faith and you kept going on that path. So
Right,
it's
right.
really, really beautiful.
And
So,
that's true for all of us. There's nothing special about me, but we just have to get that left brain, that logic, that ego, that fear and that nitpicking. We just have to get that to relax and just say, well, what if? And
mm,
just be, more in that right brain where we're creating, and just be willing to surrender.
yeah, beautiful. Well, we're coming towards the end of the episode. I would love for you to leave any last words with the listeners. Some what if something that something they can take with them and apply.
Know that you are so loved and supported. And if life is challenging now, know that it absolutely can get better. And when we get our chakras, those life force energy centers, healthier, it makes a world of difference. So just be willing to ask for help, because it's a trauma response to not be willing to ask for help or to block it and not receive it. And a lot of us have that. We're the independent cowboys. It's a very uniquely American thing too. And I love the United States. I feel very fortunate to get to live here. I'm actually Canadian. I emigrated here as a child and feel very, very fortunate. But it is, it can not be to our benefit.
Yeah.
We're meant to rise together. All boats rise with the tide.
Mm, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. We really appreciate you sharing your stories. Yeah, just really engaging stories that I think everyone can connect with. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for what you're doing, Christian, and for having me as your guest.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. We'll link your website and all any places that people can reach you in the show notes. And yeah, thanks for being on.
Fantastic. Appreciate that so much.